Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God.
What if Jesus' mission was bigger than sacrifice and his cross was about love, not wrath? The Gospels tell the story. The Urantia Book expands it, making Jesus more human, more relatable, and more cosmic than ever. Jesus didn't leave with us a religion. He left with us a living spirit that still speaks to us today. In today's topic, I'm joined by Chris Lepine, a spiritual author, teacher of the Urantia Book, and host of the New Revelation of Jesus podcast. Chris has spent decades exploring the original pre-Christian teachings of Jesus, sharing insights that bridge faith, history, and living experience. Together, we'll explore redefining Jesus. The Gospels gave us a foundation, but the Urantia Book expands the story, making Jesus more relatable, more human, and more cosmic than ever. In this episode, we uncover his true mission, the deeper meaning of the cross, and the gift of the Spirit of Truth, a guide that's alive in us today. So welcome, Chris. It's a pleasure having you here on the podcast.
Thank you, Santiago. Good afternoon. I know it's morning here in Colorado. It's about, I think, a little after 7 a.m. as we tape this.
It's morning over there, almost afternoon over here, but that's the beauty about communications nowadays. We can be connected no matter the distance.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, Chris. This topic of redefining Jesus, it's something that we've been talking about and trying to explain to people, the expanded history of Jesus. So first of all, let's talk a little bit of our source. Why are we making these claims and where do we take these claims from?
I think it's important to, and I'm assuming that the folks watching this are looking for different answers than what they've heard or different sources of truth. And like most people in the Western world, I was raised with a Christian tradition, right? We relied on the Bible, information there, and then maybe there are some extra books. And then there's historical records like Josephus. There are many, many other religions that refer to Jesus. So we've reached a point where this has been studied for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's like we've squeezed everything we can out of what we have. And the meager drops that we're getting are not enough now. Things have changed radically in 2,000 years from when, Jesus lived and taught to now. It's radically changed and a lot has been lost. So the new source of this, if you have an open mind, of course, got to have an open mind to explore. We assume we do. But the news source was given to us in the early part of the 20th century. And it was put together in a book by a group of people in Chicago when it came through. There are books about this. I won't go into detail, but the name of the book that was published in 1955 is the Urantia Book. And this book claims to be a new revelation to help us at this time. A new revelation essentially written by angels who were with Jesus at the time. It took a lot of notes and they probably shot a lot of video. They have full records, but it's an absolute complete source.
This is pretty interesting, Chris. I think, like you said, a lot of us grew up in the Christian traditions and we, like myself, grew up in the Catholic religion. And there was a lot of, missing pieces when I was, in my childhood and then later young adulthood. And like you said, the Urantia Book kind of filled these pieces and it didn't contradict anything. That's what I really liked about the book.
No.
It didn't really say this didn't happen, this happened instead, but it explains those moments that we all know from the Gospels, from the four authors of the Gospels. And these are celestial authors. So it kind of filled those gaps. And I think this is what's really important. We have to fill these gaps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of, let me put it this way. If you've never read the Urantia Book, but you didn't even know about it and you're sitting there, you're thinking, God, I would love to know, what was Jesus like as a child? Did he travel? Brothers and sisters? What did he think of the Romans? What was Nazareth like? All of those things. And that if someone gave you a source that you could trust, you would get those answers. And I guess what we're saying today is, hey, we think we found this, and open your mind. So if you could fill the gaps about what exactly did he teach, and what the Urantia Book does is it fills all the gaps and more And then it gives you a broader understanding of who Jesus was, his mission, which we'll get into later, but also who God is, you know, at the greatest depths. So that's, I mean, the Urantia book is 777 pages on the life of Jesus. And it's like you said, it's straightforward. It's simple language in part 4, and it's written for truth seekers, and it's absolutely clear. And you could take an incident like, let's say, I don't know, the Sermon on the Mount, and in the Bible, you've got about that much. Well, what if you were there and you recorded the whole thing? The Urantia book is going to give you dramatically more, and it really doesn't contradict it, like you said. It's everything you hoped it would be.
Yeah, yeah. It's so beautiful about what you're saying, and it's really the account of the angels, basically, these
Yes.
non-human beings that were there and that have the account. So we invite everybody that's watching this to go visit the Urantia Foundation website. You can watch, you can read there. I mean, it's public. You don't even have to buy the book. You can read it online. So. And diving in, Chris, now that you mentioned the source, I think it's very important that we redefine Jesus in the sense of his mission. A lot of what we know, or what the traditional mission of Jesus, as we know from Christianity, is that he came to die for the sins of the world, to rid us of the sins of the world. So what is your take on this, and what does the Urantia book tell us about his mission in that sense?
Well, I think Christianity got it wrong, totally wrong. So even if you just take the Bible, and I can tell you there are a lot of writers throughout history who have stated this, and especially modern Christians, especially progressive Christianity, rethinking this. So and I'll get into answer your question, but if you assume, everybody, that God is more amazing and loving than you can imagine, and is kind and just and fair, then the original sin does not exist. How could a baby be born with sin on its soul? That's just kind of a karma idea. That's weird. Jesus didn't teach it. Guess what? He didn't teach that. And he didn't teach that he was a blood sacrifice. So the whole idea behind this is, if you really believe in that, that means that the type of God you believe in is unfair and cruel and in some ways unforgiving. But the God we know, the God that Jesus taught about, is a loving divine parent, a loving heavenly father. Maybe you think of God as a mother, that's fine, but think of God as a loving, perfect divine parent, totally fair, completely kind. It's going to hold you accountable, but is not into punishment and unfairness. So it's if you strip that away, it gives us, I think, a clear idea of God, and can begin to bring some peace about how you're living your life.
That's interesting. And now that you're mentioning that his purpose wasn't, like you said, a sacrifice, and from this wrathful God. And I think that one of the principal things that he did was to reveal God as a loving father. And I think that's really the fundamental change from a wrathful God that we know from the Old Testament to this loving father figure that he brings. So if he didn't come here to die for getting rid of our sins, what were his missions? What was his purpose on this earth?
It's really about trust. I'll answer the question. It's really about trust. If you can feel like today when you're listening, if you link into your spirit within, to your soul, you will begin to feel trust and peace and the confidence to open your mind. So why was he here? If he wasn't here as a blood sacrifice, right? Extremely primitive idea. I think of it. That doesn't make sense at all. Why was he here? It gets back, I think, to what you're saying before. And the most important relationship we can have is with God, the creator of the universe, our loving divine parent, our loving universal father. That's what it's all about. That's our universe journey and serving others. His mission was, number one, to really experience life as a human being.
Okay.
To live as we live, to walk a mile in our shoes so that he could better help us, so the Father could better know us, so that we could better know God. I mean, he brought man closer to God and gave a new revelation of God, but also gave a new revelation of man to God because he lived it. So the purpose Really, if we look at from a purely human standpoint, not just a cosmic, the purpose of his life, and I took notes on it because I don't want to get it wrong. I'm going to read a quotation from the Urantia
Yes,
book. I
please
don't
do
want to get
so.
this wrong at all, guys. You know,
No,
and
no.
again, you can get the Urantia book. It's like $15 US. It's cheap, big, but you can read it. So I am not, the expert of experts. This is my interpretation. I'm not here to tell you what to do, what to believe, or to judge you. We're all equal seekers. Okay, so why was he here? I have come into the world to reveal the Father and establish his kingdom. Number one. So it's as you said, a revelation of the Father.
Yeah.
Jesus is an incarnation of the Father. The way he lived his life, the way he behaved is the Father in the flesh, not the words. The words are not a revelation of the Father, what he did. Second thing, here's another quote. I have come into the world to proclaim spiritual liberty to the end that mortals may be empowered to live individual lives of originality and freedom before God. So dual purpose. Number one, to reveal the Father. Number two, to teach us how to enter into an optimal relationship with the Father and find joy, confidence, success, courage, all of that. Success,
Okay.
real success. Those are the two reasons he came. There are lots of benefits that come out of that. There are many benefits, and his whole method was to focus completely on doing the will of the Father and in maintaining unbroken contact, unbroken communion. And he did it. This is interesting. He did it as a human being. It's not like an impossible thing. And he didn't have full realization of who he was as a divine person until he was baptized. So this is not an impossible thing. So, but
That's
that's why I think that's really important.
and
A
I
new
think
revelation of man to man too.
yeah. I mean, you mentioned a lot of things, and let me just break some of these down. And one of the things that you said is to experience living as a mortal being, living a human, and I think that's very important because once you create your universe or you're a co-creator with God, and how can you judge the beings that you created? How can you really understand them and really feel them unless you become like them? And I think this is very important in Jesus's nature and who he is within the universe, that he had to complete this, and this was the last bestowal. That's what it's called, as a mortal creature, which gives him the sovereignty now to understand his creation and to be able to, in a way, judge it. I don't want to say judge it because he's not. We all judge ourselves, but in a way, he establishes the moral, religious, and ethical truths that we have to live by.
No, it makes total sense. Well, I think in human terms, think of this. Have you ever worked for a boss that has no idea, doesn't even know how to do what you do? I
Yeah,
have.
yeah, a lot.
So, but what is it like when you work for someone who has done your job? They can help you, they can guide you, they can be there. I mean, if I just described what I do, unless you did it yourself, you really wouldn't know. So he knows whereof he speaks now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's important. That's
And
important. Living.
what an incredible kind thing to do, to go through this life like us.
And that's important. And you were saying, okay, he lived and he experienced this mortal life, but at the same time, he revealed the mortal life to God the Father. Through his experience, because God the Father is, all the way over there in heaven. He's a kind of in a central position. But through us and through this experience, through the unraveling of the universe, he experiences his creation. So that's beautiful. It's not only us understanding God, but God understanding us. I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty profound. But although God the Father is in a central location, I mean, and he's a person that you can talk to, really.
Yeah.
It has all the abilities we do, but there is also one of the greatest things in Jesus' teaching is that there is an actual piece of God the Father inside you. Your spirit, that's different than your soul. Your spirit helps your mind to grow your soul, to nourish your soul. So remember, I mean, even in the Bible, they talk about, Jesus said, my spirit and the Father's spirit. So it's a pretty profound, it's kind of, you're in cooperation with God, giving our individual lives are a continual revelation of humans to God, and God is revealing to each of us at the same time in our unique way. So again, Jesus lived a fully human life of revealing man to man and God to man and man to God. And we can do the same thing.
And
Not to
that's
his level,
yeah,
but
and
yeah,
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 never to
yeah.
a level. And that's the point I wanted to get to. You were saying that he had to go through the experience of not knowing that he was divine, of coming to this world as a baby, like any one of us comes to this world, not knowing anything, starting from zero. And I love that because it makes us more relatable. You know, he had to go through these instances of mortal life, even his
Mhm.
passion, which we're going to talk about later, you know, that he had to go through this horrible death and through a lot of tragedies throughout this life, as well as a lot of joyful moments. Experiencing that and basically sharing the same planet, you know, sharing the same existence with him. I mean, it's just when you think about it, it just, you know, blows my mind that we have God, or we have this part of God so close to us, you know?
Yeah, it's almost incomprehensible. It's amazing. And that's really that's the central part of his teaching is to remember. I mean, he taught focus on God. Don't focus on me. I mean, he lived an ideal human life. He gave us perfect teachings, and the teachings, his religion, he based it on the truths that the Father gave him. And then he formulated his own religion. So yeah, it's mind blowing to kind of think about that. And with, when you're just I mean, that was the secret of his unparalleled life was his communion with the Father. And that's the same thing we can do. And we can overcome any internal limitation of character, maturity, discipline, focus. And I will list something real briefly if I could.
Yeah, yeah, please do
I
so.
took a lot of notes before, but
No, yes, please
so,
share all that you want.
right. So he functioned in his function as a teacher, right? He was bringing us to the Father, and he liberated and inspired man's spiritual nature. He illuminated anyone who had a darkened human intellect, illuminated our mind. He healed our souls. He frees our mind from ancient age-old fears. And then as he went about in his ministry, he was helping people physically with, trying to heal themselves and just make a living in this world. So, yeah, pretty complete ministry.
A pretty complete ministry and very mundane. I think that's one of the things that we kind of, you know, this modern secular world, we kind of say, you know, we have to be more religious, more spiritual. Let's go to a monastery, or let's go to a hilltop and get lost there. But Jesus didn't do that. I mean, although he had some times of reflection and of introspection, he was engaging with the world, and I think that's really transcendental. You know, he didn't go and get enlightened apart from the world. He lived in the world, and that's where he became basically destroyed death as we know it, you know?
I love the point about being active. I think that's a central core of the religion of Jesus. A lot of religions or a lot of spiritual teachings really focus on escaping the world to reach the spiritual world, but it's the opposite. It is what he did. Complete embrace of what you're going through, not running away, but the total trust as a child in the Father that you can be energized, your mind can be transformed, your soul strengthened to face anything. Don't run away. And like you said, it was a balance of spiritual nourishment. He'd go off for hours and hours, sometimes days, but he came back and worked his tail off to
Yeah,
apply that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's true. And that's what I like about this new source of the dynamic part of Jesus, the practical way of talking to the Father and then being in communion with the Father. That's something that we can all take and we can all learn from. And just, I mean, let's close this segment on the before we move to the other one, which is pretty interesting. But I don't know if you want to point out anything else on this, on redefining Jesus before we move on to the next, which is the meaning of the cross.
Yeah. I think it's just that I encourage everybody listening to, if you have a hunger for more information about Jesus or a different understanding of Jesus, keep an open mind. Be, be one of those people, be part of that group of people who are progressive, open-minded, who have a dialogue. Be unafraid to challenge what you believe, and God will that God's going to hold you through this process and reveal more truth to you. Just trust God.
Definitely, definitely. That is so true. That trust that you can depend on God, and it's sometimes difficult to do because you're scared. But once you believe in that, and once you see the
Hmm.
power and the
Yeah.
miracles that happen when you do that, then everything changes.
Yeah, I do want to just share a brief personal
Sure,
anecdote
sure.
before we go into the next one, I think, which illustrates it. So, I was my parents were amazing parents, wonderful people, but one of the flaws was one of my parents overprotected me. One of my parents was always saying, "Are you okay? Do you think you can do it?" He babied me. So I had almost zero self-confidence. I didn't know what I wanted. I was afraid. When I had a challenge, I collapsed. I couldn't get things done. And the only thing that helped me was just sitting with the Father for a long, long time every day and getting energized. And what happened was, right, that list I read off before liberated my spiritual nature, illuminated my darkened mind, healed my soul. All the thoughts, all the negativity, all the fear, anxiety was completely obliterated. So I could start with this. So and that's what Jesus did every day. So and that's, and right now, I can think of many times when I encourage everybody, if you have some change you think is impossible or some situation you think is impossible, I'll talk to God.
Well, thanks, Chris, for that story. I think it really illustrates how when we put our faith in God and we let Him act in us, it definitely transforms us. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
On the Divine Within podcast, we share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.